What's going on, everybody? Before we even begin to dive into this video's topic, I do want to issue a small disclaimer. If you are watching this video pre-Unreal Engine 5 full release, the title of this video is probably something along the lines of MetaSound versus MetaSound source. And that is because in preview number 1, that is what they are called. However, I have been informed that the just MetaSound option could potentially be called something along the lines of MetaSound Node or something to that sort post Unreal Engine 5 full release. So I will do my best to try and update the title of the video if that should change once Unreal Engine 5 fully comes out. However, if you happen to come across this video after that release and it still says MetaSound versus MetaSound source, and it is currently different, I don't know. Leave me a comment and say, hey, update the title, because I do want to try and portray what we're going to dive into as accurately as possible. So, as I'm sure you now know, that is what we're going to be diving into. We're going to be taking a look at the differences between what is a MetaSound and what is a MetaSound source, and how you can use them both together. So if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button along with the notification bell so you don't miss out on any future content. And if you'd like to be a part of the Sound Effects Guy Discord server, you'll find a link in the description below. So with that being said, let's get started. So if you had watched my video on just the overview of Preview 1, I had mentioned that at the time of recording that video, I didn't know the difference between MetaSound and MetaSound source. I had also stated that as I learned, I would pass that information on to you guys. And so that's what we're going to be diving into. So if we look here I've got an audio piece already put in here. And if we right click, I've also already got the MetaSound plugin enabled. You'll see this is what I was talking about. We have a MetaSound source. However, under our MetaSound pop-out menu, we have just MetaSound. And again, at the time of recording this in Preview 1, that is what it's called. It may, however, change once Unreal Engine 5 is fully released. So if we mouse over this, we can see we have a tooltip for MetaSound source that says this MetaSound type can be played as an audio source. However, if we look at just the MetaSound, it says this asset type is used for MetaSound assets that can only be used as nodes in other MetaSound graphs. Because of this, they contain no required inputs or outputs. So what does that mean? So I'm going to go ahead and create a MetaSound source here. And the audio that I have in is just a piece of piano music. And so I'm just going to call this piano MetaSound. And we'll go ahead and open this up. And it is a stereo file. So we'll go ahead and make this a stereo file as well. And we're going to add our wave player so that we can play that piece. And I'll select that audio. Now, typically, if we were just doing a straight MetaSound source, kind of like if we were doing a sound cue, we would have our player and connected to the output. But let's jump back over to this window. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to create just a MetaSound. And I'm going to leave it new MetaSound for now, because I want to start off by showing you guys the difference. So in the tooltip, it said that there were no inputs or outputs. It could just be used in another graph. And that is because now that we have Preview 1, we can actually put other MetaSounds inside the MetaSound source. So how do we use this? So think of it as a way, kind of like if you were in Ableton and you were making patches, or even if you're familiar with other parts of Unreal Engine, maybe the materials. And so instead of making a material, you're making a material instance. They're not the same thing. I'm just trying to help really the understanding of the concept. So let's say, for example, we want to create a patch that is reverb. Now we could put a reverb directly on here, but we want that to be modular. We want to be able to move it around. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this, and I'm just going to type in, now there isn't a reverb plugin per se, but there is a stereo delay, and we can use that. So as you noticed up top, we don't have a play button. We're not actually playing the MetaSound node. What we want to do is we want to create a patch or a custom node that we can put into our actual MetaSound source. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to promote these to variables. And you'll notice something really cool happens when I come back over here now that I've already drug this in. Because I've added custom inputs, our node now reflects those custom inputs. So I'm going to go ahead and change this, just the title of it. And we'll call it left audio in and right audio in, just so we have a better understanding of what's happening here. And I can also promote these outputs. And again, you'll see because I've now created custom outputs, even my node inside the MetaSound source has custom outputs. So we can also do this with any of the other parameters. So maybe I want to be able to select the delay mode, the delay time, and maybe our feedback. So you don't have to include all of them, but you certainly can. And you can now see as we progressively create this, this is going to grow. So what we can do now, and I should probably change the name of this, I will here in a second, but if we were to add a stereo mixer, and I don't know exactly how many we're going to be diving into today, so I'm just going to grab the largest one. So we'll go ahead and connect these out. And so we can have this connected to our first input. And what we're going to do is I'm going to pull this off to the side. And we can run this into here now. And it almost, if you're familiar with working in a DAW, it almost turns it into, for lack of a better term, like your aux send. So we've got our straight throughput here coming off of our wave player. And we've also got this extra parallel send going to this delay node that we've created. And just so that we can have some volume control, I'm going to promote this to a graph input. And this is another thing that's new in preview 1. We have widgets that we can turn this into. So I'm going to create a slider. And this is just going to be a volume slider for our wave player. And we can do the same thing for this custom node that we've made. Again, graph input and make it a slider. And so now our auxiliary send, we now have volume control over that as well. And we can also do that for things like our delay time. I can promote that to a graph, and maybe I want that to be a knob. Same with our feedback. And so now we just have so much more customization over what we're doing inside our MetaSounds. So let's play around with this for just a second. And I'm going to pull the volume of this all the way down. So if I hit play on this, you can hear that we have this piano piece. And I can now bring up the volume . And so now you can hear that we have created this auxiliary send with a plugin that we can now mix in different effects. And we can do this with even more. So I am going to change the name of this. And we'll just call this reverb. Actually, no, I'm going to call it delay. And I'm going to create another one. And it is just going to be a regular MetaSound. And I'm going to call this one, maybe we want to do a bit crusher. So now we've got our bit crusher up here. And because we're working with a stereo file, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create 2 of these. And so now we've got, and I'm going to call this left audio out. And we'll call this right audio out. And we can also have a left audio in and a right audio in. And since for this one, I'm going to be controlling everything from the same knob, I'm going to call this sample rate, and I can connect it to both. That way, as it changes one, it's changing the other one as well. And so now we have a bit crusher patch. And so I can come up here to our actual MetaSound source, and I can just drag that in. And so now you can see all of the different parameters that I promoted to graphs are available in our custom node. So let's go ahead and we're going to run just like we did with our delay. We're going to go ahead and run this out here. And we're going to promote these to variables. And so because we had run both of these, even though we're using 2 bit crusher nodes out to a single input, we can control both the left and right from the same knob. And we'll go ahead and connect our left and right outputs here. And just like we did with this, we can have another input and we can make that a slider. And just so that we're not running everything on a 0 to 1, what I'm going to do is let's have this go up to, let's say 16,000 and all the way down to 4,000. And we want our bit depth to go from, let's say 4 to 16. So now I'll go ahead and hit play on this. And again, you can hear the regular piano. And so now you can hear that we're mixing in that bit crush auxiliary send. And we still also have our delay. Now you'll probably notice that right now we have everything running in parallel. And for those of you who are already familiar with the concept of these custom patches, you're probably like, yeah, well, you only have one thing in there. However, just like you can in Ableton, we can combine these. So I'm going to go ahead and create yet another MetaSound node, and I'll call this one Bit Crushed Delay. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our bit crusher here. I'm going to copy it, and I can paste it into here. And I can also take our delay and paste it into here. Or I can delete these out, and I can run these together. So there's my bit crusher. There's my delay. And now maybe I want to connect these to work in serial mode instead of parallel. So I can just go ahead and connect them. And then I can promote this to a graph output. And I can promote these to graph inputs. And so now that we have all of this here, and come back into our MetaSound source, and I'll take our bit crush delay. And so now I have this even further developed custom node that is both of these single effect patches now running in a serial patch. And just like we did before, my left out and my right out to the inputs here. And I can still run these same knobs that I have here into this one as well. So there's our sample rate, our bit depth, our delay time, and our feedback. And we're going to run this to our mixer. And then we can create yet another volume slider. And so now I'll keep this volume at 1, and I'll turn these down. And we'll hit play. And so now, because we're running that in serial, it's like stacking your plugins. It's all about signal flow. So we've got our audio going into our bit crusher, and then once it's bit crushed, then we're delaying the bit crushed audio. Now, obviously that doesn't sound very good, but it's more of a conceptual thing. And so this is how you would build out various patches. You know, you can have a patch for each individual effect, and then you can create custom patches for stringing effects together. But because they're all in the MetaSound that we can then put into our MetaSound source, it makes this entire process completely modular. All right, guys, so that's going to wrap up this video on the difference between MetaSound and MetaSound source. As I'd mentioned, it didn't sound the greatest, but I just wanted to give you guys the concept, you know, and I would love to see what patches or custom nodes you create and how you work with it. And so feel free to let me know in the comments, or again, you can join the Sound Effects Guy Discord server in the link below. Until next time.